Welcome to IB Math SL. We are going to start the quadratics bookwork. This is the first page. On the first page, we're just going to review something that you learned a long time ago, but we're just going to review here. Basically, what we're going to learn here is that to multiply two numbers together, let's say you're going to multiply a certain number, and you're going to multiply it by another number, and you know that the product or the result of the multiplication is the number 0. Okay, so I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but if two numbers are multiplied together and you get 0, one of the numbers or both of the numbers have to be 0. Okay, there is no way to multiply two numbers together that are both not 0 and get 0. One of them has to be 0 or both. Okay, so because of that, one of the tricks we use to figure out the solutions for quadratic equations is to make this kind of equation here, where we have one number multiplied times another number equals 0. And if we do that, then we know that either this one has to be 0, or this one has to be 0, or they're both 0. Okay? So, the thing is, when you have a quadratic equation, it doesn't look that easy. It doesn't look like 3 times 0 equals 0. What you end up seeing instead is like, oh, parentheses, and you got like x's in here, and you got 7s, and you got other things, and you got a bunch of weird stuff in here that doesn't look like a number. But actually, you know, any expression with x's and 7s and plus, minus, subtraction, etc., it's a number. Right? You don't know what the number is, but you know it is a number. So once you've got these parentheses here, you know that this one number times the other, and then you can figure out that either this has to be 0, or this has to be 0, or they have to both be 0. Okay? Alright, so let's try a couple problems. So, and by the way, that's called the null factor law. So we got this. And that does not look like two numbers multiplied together. But we can make it into two numbers multiplied together by factoring. Okay, so remember factoring? We can see that there's a common factor between these two. The common factor is x. There's an x in both of these. So I'm going to factor an x out of both of these. I'm going to get 4x plus 7. Right? I'm going to factor out an x from 4x squared. I get 4x left. I'm going to factor an x out of 7x. I get 7 left. Okay? So now I have a number times another number. And so now I know that for this equation to be true, for it to be equal to 0, then either x has to be 0, or 4x plus 7 must equal to 0. Okay, and that's just another way of saying subtract 7 from both sides, we'll get 4x equals minus 7, x equals negative 7/4. Okay, so the two possible solutions to make this statement true is x equals 0 or x equals negative 7/4. Now obviously they can't both be true at the same time. Either it's going to be x equals 0 or it's going to be x equals negative 7/4. Can't be x equals both, right? Okay, let's move on. So this is 3x squared equals 8x. Now, first thing we need to do is we need to put everything on the left side. If you go back and look at this procedure here, which I didn't talk about at all, it says to rearrange the equation so that one side is 0, so that you can get it into this form, right? So let's do that. We're going to do 3x squared minus 8x equals 0. Then I'm going to factor out the x from each term. Then I know that either this has to be 0 or this has to be 0 to make the statement true. So one of the solutions is x equals 0. The other solution is 3x minus 8 equals 0, which is the same thing as 3x equals 8, which is the same thing as x equals 8/3. Okay? So those are the two possibilities for E. Now this last one, C. So I'm going to factor out an x, just like I did last time. And then I have this, and so I know that either x equals 0 or 3x minus 7 equals 0, which is the same thing as 3x equals 7, which is the same thing as x equals 7/3. Okay? Alright, let's move down to G. Oh, this is a little bit harder. We can't just factor out an x of this, right? Because there is no, we can't factor an x out of a 6. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use, factoring, which you learned maybe a couple of years ago or last year. So to figure out what this is going to factor as, we need to write down all the possible factors of 6. So it's 1, 2, 3, 6, right? So we know that either the factors we're looking for are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. So let's try 2 and 3. So I'm going to say it's going to be x something 2, x something 3, and that's going to be equal to 0. And I always guess minus minus first, okay? X minus 2, x minus 3. So x minus 2 times x minus 3, if I multiply minus 2 and minus 3 together, I get plus 6, so that worked out. If I do FOIL and I do outside inside, then I get negative 3x minus 2x, and that gives me minus 5x, and that gives me what's in the middle, so it worked out. Okay? Great. Now, why did I try 2 and 3 instead of 1 and 6 first? Well, after you get some experience, you're gonna look at the middle term, and the middle term looks like it's like 2 plus 3. Could be 6 minus 1 too, but after you do a few, you'll get used to it. Worst thing, you're just gonna try the wrong one first, and you're gonna waste a little bit of time before you get to the other one. But after you do about 5 problems, you'll remember how to do it, and you won't make that mistake anymore. Okay, so here, if this is going to be 0, it's x minus 2 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0 leads to a solution of x equals 2, right? X minus 3 equals 0 leads to a solution of x equals 3. I can actually just look at that and do the algebra in my head. But x minus 3 equals 0, add 3 to both sides, x equals 3. Okay? Alright, okay. So here, you might say, oh, I'm going to factor x out of here. Oh, whoa, look at the right side. It's not 0. So we need to get rid of the 0 on the right side, get rid of the 12 on the right side. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides. So we're going to get x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. We're going to have, okay, we're going to factor this out. I'm thinking 12 could be 1 and 12. It could be 3 and 4. It could be 2 and 6. But one giveaway here is that I have a 1 in the middle. If I have a 1 in the middle, it looks like it's going to be like a 4 minus 3 or something. So I'm going to put x3 and x4. And then I'm going to guess 2 negatives. But of course, that's going to be wrong because multiplying negative 3 times negative 4 gives you positive 12, not negative 12. So I know that one of them has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. So I'm going to go ahead and make one of them positive, one of them negative. Now I'm going to multiply it positive 3 times negative 4, and I do get negative 12, so that's right. How do I get the 1x? I'm going to multiply this together, I'm going to multiply this together and add them together. Minus 4x plus 3x is negative x, not plus 1x. So I know that I got them switched. So I'm just going to switch them back. Okay, so positive 4x times negative 3 is going to be negative 12, so that's okay. Negative 3x, positive 4x, add those together and you get 1x, and so that worked out. Great. Okay, and then I know that the root here, or the value of x, which makes it 0, is x equals 3. The value of x that makes this equal to 0 is x equals negative 4. Okay, and now we can move on to the next one. Okay, so here, x squared minus 10x plus 21. So if you're going to factor these, the factors of 21 are going to be like 1 and 21, 3 and 7. If I look at 10, it kind of looks like 7 plus 3, right? So that makes me think that I should be using 3 and 7. And let's see, I put two negatives first, and multiplying negative 7 times negative 3 does give me positive 21, so that worked out. How do I get negative 10? Well, if I multiply negative 7 times x and negative 3 times x, I get negative 7x minus 3x, which is negative 10x, okay? So that worked out. So then I figure out, okay, when does this expression equal to 0? It's equal to 0 when x equals 7 or when x equals 3. Okay. All right. Moving on to number 2. Solve the following by factorization. Okay. So here we are again. We're doing the same thing we were in number 1. Okay. What's the difference? This is a little bit harder because you can see that at the beginning here, I got all these leading coefficients. So it's a little bit hard to do the factoring. Okay. So this is the way we're going to factor these is I am going to take the 9 and I'm going to figure out the factors of 9, which are going to be like 1 and 9. Usually they're not going to use 1 and 9. Okay. It's a book problem. So usually it's going to be 3 times 3, right? 4, the factors of 4 are going to be 2 times 2 or 1 times 4, right? Probably 2 times 2. Okay, and then we're going to, right here 3x, right here 3x, put 2 here, put 2 here, and then we'll put a couple of minuses here. So that's our first guess, okay? So if we multiply the two last ones, minus 2 times minus 2 is plus 4, that worked out. Multiply the first two together, 3x times 3x, 9x squared, that worked out. Okay, now let's try to see if we get negative 12x here in the middle. We're going to multiply the inside ones, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6x. We multiply the outside ones, negative 2 times 3 is 6x, negative 6x. We add together negative 6x plus negative 6x. Guess what? Negative 12x. So we did get the middle term. So we guessed right, okay? So it's actually, it's like a square. There's two of the same thing multiplied together, right? So we have 3x minus 2 equals 0. 3x equals 2. Okay? X equals 2/3. Right? Okay. 2x squared plus 3 equals 5x. Okay, so let's solve this one. So we're going to have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0. Okay? So let's see. What are the factors of 2? Well, there's 1 and 2, right? What are the factors of 3? Well, there's 1 and 3. Well, that was pretty easy. So we'll put 2x and 1x, and here we'll put 3 and 1. And we just guessed in order here. We don't actually know if it's 1, 3 or 3, 1. But subtract for both to start out with. We're going to multiply the two last ones together. Negative 3 times negative 1, that gets you positive 3. Multiply 2x times x, that gives you 2x squared. We're just checking, but we don't really need to check because, of course, they're going to give us the first and the last terms. We chose factors which give us the first and last term. Okay, so now we're going to do the outside-inside. So we do negative 1 times 2, that's negative 2. Negative 3 times 1, that's negative 3. We add together negative 3 and negative 2, and we get negative 5. It worked. So that first guess worked. Okay. So now we're just going to figure out, okay, what makes this term equal to 0? 2x minus 3 equals 0. 2x equals 3. So that is equal to x equals 3 halves. Right? And x minus 1, that's the solution for that is just x equals 1. Okay? Alright. C. So 3x squared equals 16x plus 12. So first we need to put everything on the left side so that we just have equals 0 on the right side, right? Otherwise we can't use the null factor rule. Okay. So now we're going to put the factors for 3 on the left side. It's going to be 3 and 1, of course. Nothing else. Notice that all these problems, the multiplications we're doing, are between whole numbers, right? Once the factors are decimals or fractions or something, it makes it a lot harder to figure it out. And then you're not going to use this method anymore. You're going to use quadratic formula, which we'll see later. So 12 is going to be like probably 3 and 4 or 2 and 6. You know, my spidey senses tell me it's going to be 2 and 6. Okay. The reason why is because I see the 16 here. And if I have 6 and 2 like this, then the 3 and the 6 multiplied together gives me 18. And then the 2 and the 1 gives me 2. And the 18 minus 2 gives me a 16. Okay. You know, factoring is about the worst possible procedure in the world. And unless somebody forces you to do it, you probably would never want to do it. Okay, so, and let's see, did that work out? Oops, I can see I made a math error here. You know what the math error was? It's minus. See, no matter how much experience with algebra you have, doesn't matter. You're going to make some mistakes. Okay, so -2 and -6, one of them has to be positive. I'm going to guess it's this one. The reason why is -16 is a negative number. So obviously it's going to be -18 plus 2 and not +18 minus 2, right? So I guessed right. And x minus 6 yields x equals 0. 3x plus 2 yields, let's see, 3x equals -2. X equals -2/3. Okay? Alright. Alright. Let's go to G. So we're going to do the same thing first. First we need to move everything to the left side. So we're going to have 3x squared minus 10x minus 8 equals 0. Okay, we subtracted 10x and minus 8 from both sides. Then we're going to find out the factors for the first term, which is 3. We're going to put 1 and 3. Then we're going to find the factors for the -8 term. Let's try like 4 and 2. And obviously -4 and -2 don't multiply together to get -8. One of them has to be positive. So let's make this positive, see what happens. Okay, so first we're going to have the outside multiplied together. We get -2x, right? Then we multiply the inside ones together. We get positive 12x. That gives us positive 10x. We're supposed to get negative 10x, so we're going to reverse these. Okay, and then we're going to have negative 12x, and we're going to have positive 2x, and that's going to give us negative 10x, which is what we wanted. Okay? Alright, and now we can figure out that this, x minus 4 equals 0, yields x equals 4. And 3x plus 2 is going to yield 3x equals -2, x equals -2/3. So x equals -2/3 or x equals 4. Okay? Alright. 7x squared plus 6. Okay, same thing. We got to move everything to the left side. And after you do a few of them, you're going to say, well, this isn't too bad. Problem is you got to remember this, 3 weeks later, after you haven't done it for a while. So that's why it's really important to review for the exam, and it's really important to do a lot of this practice, take notes, so that when you forget how to do this, you're going to be able to figure it out again. So one of these is obviously not going to be, they're not going to both be negative, so I'm going to make this one positive, see what happens. So this will give me 1x, this will give me -7x, that'll give me -6x. I want positive 6x, so I got those reversed. Let me reverse those again. There's nothing wrong with guessing wrong. 1 times 7 gives you positive 7, -1 times 1 gives you -1, positive 6x. It worked. Okay? Alright, So 7x minus 1 equals 0. 7x equals 1. X equals 1/7. X plus 1 equals 0. X equals -1. Okay? Oops. -1. X equals 1/7. Okay? Alright. 4x squared. I gotta move everything to the left side, right? First. Okay. That looks awful. Alright, now I'm gonna factor. So, the factors of 4, let's guess 2x and 2x first. Factors of 3 have to be 3 and 1, because we're looking for whole number factors. Okay, and then how do we get 11 out of this? 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times, no, that doesn't give us 11 anyway, right? So it's not going to be 2 times 2. It's going to be like 1 times 4. Remember how I said usually it's not 1 times 4? Well, in this case it is. Okay, so then now it's going to be 3 times 4, which gives us 12. 1 times 1, which gives us 1. So that looks like it could give us 11 if we put a positive there, right? So -3 times 4 gives us -12. 1 times 1 gives us +1, and that gives us -11x. So, great. So, the solution for this one, 1x minus 3 equals 0, which means 1x equals 3, which means x equals 3, right? We already got x equals 3. And then the other one, 4x plus 1 equals 0, so 4x equals -1, x equals -1/4. Okay? Alright. Alright, so that was it for page 1. Oops.